Sevastopol Harbor, occupied Crimea. In the pre-dawn hours, the crown jewel of the Russian Black Sea Fleet slept under what it believed was an impenetrable shield of protection. Warships worth billions lay at anchor, bristling with missiles and guns. But out on the black water, something was stirring. Small, dark shapes, barely visible against the waves, were closing in. They were not submarines. They were not special forces. They were something new. And in a few short hours, these unmanned hunters would deliver a message to the Kremlin, written in fire and steel, that would change the rules of naval warfare forever.
February 2025, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine begins. On the southern front, the strategic linchpin is the Black Sea. From their heavily fortified base in Sevastopol, the warships of the Russian Black Sea Fleet dominate the waves. They form a steel ring, blockading Ukraine's ports, strangling its economy, and using their decks as launch platforms for deadly caliber cruise missiles that rain down on cities hundreds of miles inland. Ukraine's own navy, small to begin with, is effectively neutralized in the opening days of the war. Its flagship is scuttled to prevent capture. The strategic imbalance is absolute. Russia has a fleet in being, Ukraine does not. It seemed the sea belonged to Russia, but in the halls of Ukraine's security services, a desperate and audacious plan was taking shape. If they couldn't fight Russia's navy with a navy of their own, they would have to invent one. The answer was not a billion-dollar destroyer. It was small, cheap, and unmanned, a remote-controlled kamikaze boat, an unmanned surface vessel, or USV. It was a weapon born of necessity, funded by crowdfunding, and built with commercially available parts, and it was about to be unleashed on an unsuspecting enemy. Meet the Magura V5 and its siblings like the Sea Baby. They are sleek, jet-black vessels little more than 18 feet long. They ride low in the water, making their radar cross-section minuscule. Powered by a jet ski engine, they can reach speeds of over 40 knots. At the front is a camera providing a live feed to an operator, and inside is a warhead carrying hundreds of kilograms of high explosives. Their lifeline, their guidance system, is Elon Musk's Starlink satellite internet, giving them a stable connection far from shore.
The target, Sevastopol Harbor, one of the most heavily defended naval bases on the planet. Protected by defensive booms, patrol boats, combat dolphins, and layers of air defense systems. A direct assault would be suicide. But these drones weren't planning a direct assault. They were designed for stealth. On the night of October 29, 2022, the plan went into motion. A swarm was launched. Hundreds of miles away, in a secret bunker, Ukrainian operators sat in front of screens. For them, it was like a high-stakes video game. On their monitors, a grainy night vision view of the Black Sea, skimming just above the waves. Their mission? Navigate through the outer patrols, slip past the harbor defenses, and find their targets. The first sign of trouble for the Russians came from the air. A wave of aerial drones descended on the port, triggering air raid sirens and forcing the harbor's air defenses to look up. It was a distraction. While the guns were pointed at the sky, the real threat was slithering in at sea level. The first sea drone breached the outer harbor, then another and another. The first target was the new flagship of the Black Sea Fleet, the Admiral Magura. Onboard footage from the drone itself shows the final, terrifying moments. Russian sailors can be seen firing machine guns frantically at the incoming drone, their tracers splashing into the water around it. But it's too late. The drone weaves through the fire, accelerates, and the screen goes white. Chaos erupted in the harbor. Searchlights swept the water. Helicopters were scrambled, their machine guns strafing the surface. But the swarm was relentless. Another drone slammed into the minesweeper Ivan Golubets, tearing a hole at its hull. The attack, a coordinated ballet of aerial and naval drones, lasted for hours. By sunrise, the damage was done. Ukraine had struck a devastating blow not just to the ships, but to the pride and perceived invincibility of the Russian Navy. This was not a one-time stunt. It was the beginning of a campaign. In the months that followed, Ukraine's drone fleet grew more sophisticated. They used them to attack the Kerch Bridge, to hunt Russian patrol boats, and to strike a landing ship, the Olenegarsky Gornyak, in the port of Novorossiysk, hundreds of miles from Ukrainian shores, a port the Russians believed was completely safe. Each attack refined their tactics. They learned to wait for stormy weather when the drones were even harder to spot in the waves. They learned to hunt in packs, with one drone targeting a ship's propellers to disable it, while another went for the kill shot amidships. They had effectively created a guerrilla navy, one that could appear anywhere at any time. The Russian response was a mix of denial and frantic adaptation. They claimed minimal damage, but their actions told a different story. They began painting their warships in new camouflage patterns to confuse the drone's optics. They installed more machine guns and deployed helicopters constantly. But the most significant move was a quiet, humiliating retreat. They began withdrawing their most valuable warships from Sevastopol, pulling them back to the relative safety of Novorossiysk. The hunters had become the strategic impact was immense. By pushing the Russian fleet eastward, Ukraine effectively broke the blockade on its western ports. This was critical for the UN-brokered grain deal, allowing Ukrainian agricultural products to reach the world and averting a global food crisis. With just a handful of cheap, explosive boats, Ukraine had achieved a strategic victory that a conventional navy could only dream of. But the true impact resonates far beyond the Black Sea. Military planners in every major navy, from the Pentagon to Beijing, were taking notice. The era of the large, expensive, manned surface combatant as the undisputed king of the seas was now in question. A new doctrine was being written in real time. The age of unmanned naval warfare had arrived, not in a simulation, but in the crucible of combat. This is a paradigm shift. The cost-benefit analysis of naval warfare has been turned on its head. Can a $500,000 drone functionally defeat a $2 billion frigate? The Ukrainians proved that it can. The future of naval conflict will now involve swarms of intelligent, autonomous systems, creating a battlefield that is faster, more complex, and more lethal than ever before.
The black waters of Sevastopol harbor on that October night became a laboratory for the future. It was a glimpse into a world where the size of a nation's fleet may matter less than the ingenuity of its engineers and the courage of its remote warriors. It proved that the great equalizer in modern warfare isn't always a bigger gun. Sometimes it's a better idea. The ripples from those small drones continue to spread, forcing the world's navies to rethink everything they thought they knew about defense, vulnerability, and the very nature of combat on the high seas. The war for the Black Sea is far from over, but one thing is certain: the robots have arrived, and the ocean will never be the same.